Hello and welcome to the Sober Bartender podcast, the show where we recover from life. I'm your host, Brandy Kelly. I am so glad you're here today. I just did a self-discovery exercise, and I'm inviting you to take time this week and do it also. So it may sound a little morbid, but bear with me. I just wrote my own eulogy. So I was on a training call last week with Dean Graciosi and Matthew McConaughey, and they talked about writing your own eulogy and why we should all think about what our eulogy will be. And, we don't like to think about the fact that one day we won't be here, and hopefully that day isn't today and it isn't tomorrow. But if it were to be, what would they say about your life? Like, what would your story be up to this point? So that takes some reflection, some journaling, some pen to paper time. But I did sit down and do that today. But I asked myself the questions: how do my present actions affect how I'm perceived in the future? And do I love it? Do I love what my story is up to this point? And is it true? Is how I view it, how it actually happened? And is it what I'd want it to be? And the answer that I came up with was yes and no. It's not done. Well, if everything ended today and this was the end of my story, I do feel that it would be ending on a positive note. But I also feel like there are so many unfulfilled dreams and goals, and the calling that I have, there's more to be done. And so, I'm glad that I'm here today to share this with you. And, if I wake up tomorrow and I get to live another day, then that's another day that I can put towards rewriting my story. So what has my story been up to this point? So when you do this, I encourage you to include family and close relationships, education and career, hobbies and special interests, special accomplishments. It's harder than it sounds. It's hard to sit down and try to objectively write about your life in a general way, especially if you're me and you totally left field into, a deep life lesson or story. But I'm going to read you guys what I have. Wait. So I didn't write this, but I loved it, and I feel like it's a great opening. Honestly, I love each and every one of you, and I hope you continue to feel this even now as I am with you. I hope you think of me when you see a warm sunrise, or hear a weird bird, or watch a baseball game. And I hope you smile when you do. I want you all to smile, even when it hurts. You don't so much owe it to me as you do yourself. You're all beautiful, but you're far more beautiful when you choose joy. I don't know who wrote that, but I absolutely love it. It wasn't me. Brandy Kelly was born to teenagers and found relief in the realization that they were growing up together. She was a big sister, babysitter, and a trailblazer for hard lessons early on in life. She couldn't wait to be grown up and on her own. She struggled with anxiety, depression, and life as a teen, but leveled out a bit in high school and went on to graduate from Mojave High School in Bullhead City. She began her 20-year bartending career at just 19 in a little bar in Bullhead City, Arizona. That career would lead her on the adventure of a lifetime. She bartended in several places, including Scottsdale, Las Vegas, Temecula, Seattle, and Corpus Christi, Texas. Each place brought amazing new friends along with new challenges. She had a passion for fitness and self-improvement all throughout her 20s, including fitness competitions like Fitness America, as well as boxing, jiu-jitsu, and Muay Thai. She also developed a passion for partying. Shots with customers, the well-earned shift drink, and paying visits to her fellow pals were her favorites. She never said no to a good time and never met a drink she didn't like, except scotch and, oddly enough, brandy. On her adventures, she got to see a good slice of the world: Mexico for her 23rd birthday, New York City, Duluth, Minnesota, Colorado, all of California and Arizona, Germany, Amsterdam, Austria, Dominican Republic, Miami, and her personal favorite, Washington State, all before making her way home to the Gulf Coast of Texas and Corpus Christi. She experienced a truly exciting life, filled with much happiness and joy, as well as deep pain and sorrow. In her 30s, her love for the party shifted. She stopped holding on to society norms and let the drink take over. Despite her drunken state, she loved to take care of people, to make them feel seen, heard, and important. She wanted them to know that someone truly cared. She cared deeply and gave them what she needed. She was quick to spot longing and loneliness through a smile or an outburst. She'd often invite it home to pour it a drink and commiserate. Life as she knew it came to a halt in the summer of 2019. She was at what she thought was the end of her rope. The drink had won, and she wanted to quit or die. Fortunately, her life didn't end there. It had only just begun. For the first time in her adult life, she got sober and was staying that way. She moved in with her best friend, Candy, and Johnny, and will be forever grateful to them. She dove into AA and learned how to build a life without alcohol. She also dove into chaos to fill the void the alcohol had left. It would take 11 months sober, a global pandemic, a 5-month relapse, a broken engagement, a brief romance with a nearly homeless narcissist, a cross-country move, and an impulsive wedding to get her desperate and hopeless enough to leave the booze and the chaos behind for good and make the change she really wanted in her life to happen. She surrendered herself to the process of recovery. She got out of the way and let it work in her life. Her marriage ended after 6 months. She didn't know where she'd live. She finally had learned one of her most valuable lessons. She took life one day at a time and did the next thing right and the next right thing. The universe continued to deliver blessings instead of lessons from that point forward. She met herself and found value and purpose in her life. She learned that just when you think your story's over, the page turns and begins a brand new chapter with limitless possibilities. She went on to find and marry the love of her life, Scott. He saw her in a way she couldn't see herself and gave her everything she never knew she needed, including a love for baseball. It was through his encouragement and belief that after they moved to Texas, she started the Sober Bartender podcast. Recovery and overcoming became her mission, anthem, and purpose. She left AA and joined Recovery Dharma. She found her people, and her people found her. The desire to help relieve and ease the suffering in others that she'd experienced had a platform as she poured her heart into it fully. Hoping that something she said would one day give someone hope, plant a seed or give them the courage to change? I think it did. If this was the end of my story, then I'm ending on a great note, but my story isn't done. By the end of my story, I would like that to say that I stood on stage and I encouraged thousands of women to make the change that they need in their life, to find what it is in them that they want to do differently and to just do it. And the podcast is a great start, but there's coaching, and there's one-on-ones, and there's group coaching, and there's courses, and there's so much information that I have gathered that I am brimming with, that I can't wait to share with you. So I encourage you to try this exercise. It doesn't need to sound like mine. That's just what I came up with in a couple hours of journaling and giving it some thought. But what are the major things that have happened? And is the way that you see them as true, or is that, like, start questioning these things, and like, what are your milestones, and who has helped you along the way, and what do you regret, and what do you aspire to do? I think the next step of this is I want to sit down and I want to envision myself 20 years from now at 59. Oh, yeah. Ooh, 59. And write what I think that will sound like. I want to write down what I hope will be included in my eulogy after 20 more years of this. Because I'm almost a year into this podcast journey and into taking action. Almost 3 years into being continually sober. And it's been nothing but blessings. It's done nothing but get better. So I can't wait to see where it goes. It has not been easy and it hasn't been perfect. But the lessons that I'm getting are absolutely blessings now. They're definitely blessings. I said blessings. That's funny. So if you're struggling, I just want you to know that you are going to get through this. This too shall pass. And I don't say that to minimize everything that I thought would take me out. I have survived. I have survived 100% of my bad days up to this point. So please just keep swimming. Just keep going. If you are enjoying this podcast, I encourage you to follow, subscribe, like, rate, review, and share. Share the podcast with anyone that you think might benefit from the message that I'm sharing here. You can find me on Facebook. We have a Sober Bartender podcast Facebook group. And then you can find me on Instagram at the Sober Bartender Podcast and on YouTube at the Sober Bartender. So if there is anything that you would like to hear on the podcast, if you're interested in being a guest, if you write your own eulogy and you want to share it with somebody that's not going to judge or have any questions, you could always DM me that. I put out new episodes every Wednesday. So if you follow or subscribe, then you'll get notified as soon as those come out. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Thank you. I love you guys. I will talk to you next Wednesday.